I know people saw like 30 for 30 and all these shows about Tyson and Holyfield. And none of these shows go into any of the details that would make a story more compelling and more to what it needed to resemble. And they touch on the subject a little bit, but everybody wants to be politically correct in this situation. But here's the things that basically they didn't tell you about the Mike Tyson and Evander Holyfield story or situation or how it played out. They met back when I believe they were amateurs. That's like the first time they met, and they were okay. I mean, they didn't have any problems with one another. There was no real beef or anything like that. It's just that when Mike Tyson turned pro as a heavyweight and started coming up, he became a phenom, under custom model. Don King hadn't even really saw this guy emerge yet, and he was so young and so devastatingly strong. He was knocking out guys left and right and putting up a name for himself in the division. Evander Holyfield was slowly, methodically moving his career up on, going to the 83, the LA games or the Olympics, at 84 and all that stuff. So as he's moving up as a light heavyweight, and through his entire career, at that point into like, I think it was like 85 or something, where he decided his cruiserweight career and all this stuff, that he was going to stay here and make a big run for all the titles, and he wanted to stay and unify. No one thought he would go to heavyweight and stay. He wanted to be like the next Michael Spinks or something. He was signed by the Duva. And Duvas, Dan Duva and all these guys, they wanted to make him like Spinks and try to promote him as the Olympic guy, the underdog, and he's going to dominate the cruiserweight division, which he did. But they wanted to make a big money fight for him to go to heavyweight, him to have maybe 2 setup fights and then fight for the heavyweight championship of the world, because they figured like it has to be the right type of heavyweight for Evander Holyfield to match up against. So Henry Tillman, who had already, I think he beaten Mike Tyson when he was an amateur and all this stuff, and at cruiserweight, Holyfield fought him, and they start pairing him up against a lot of opponents that Mike Tyson had faced after Tyson was at heavyweight, and they start bringing Holyfield into prominence. Once this was done, a lot of different things took place. HBO didn't have really a pay-per-view service in hand. They were still dealing with Don King's TVKO. And with Don King's TVKO, with Mike Tyson, they basically had the whole boxing realm in their hands with pay-per-view. It became a more frequent event, and Don King was basically running the show. And it was going to go the way Don wanted it to go, and he was making all this money. He owned almost all the heavyweight contenders, the main ones anyway, and the other ones that Tyson fought, they had no ties to Don. They could just leave, like Pinkley Thomas and all these other fighters. And those are the guys that Holyfield would come in and fight. And Shelly Finkel wanted to wait for the right moment to make a fight against Mike Tyson, because he said, well, Tyson's the right opponent for Holyfield, because Holyfield is actually taller than Tyson, and it would give him a certain advantage. Now Holyfield was a small heavyweight. He came in 208. You know, his entire time at heavyweight, Vander Holyfield at this point was coming in at 208 or less. His body has not really fully developed at the weight class he's at. So now that he's had a couple of fights, the Michael Dokes fight was the fight that he was pretty much hurt in, and a lot of people was like, well, there goes the investment in Evander Holyfield. And Holyfield's heart, you know, he has a lot of heart. He dug down deep and kept fighting back and ended up stopping Dokes, which was one of the biggest fights of his career. So, beating Michael Dokes, and that was like one of the best fights ever, because Holyfield was so hurt in the fight, and to come back and stop him in the 10th round, you know, it said that, okay, Holyfield could stand here. You know, the Alex Stewart fight, you know, Stewart gave him a good go for a little while, but Holyfield ended up coming out victorious. So it wasn't that Holyfield couldn't fight. He had a heart of a champion. He could fight. He was tough. He worked out a lot, all into conditioning, all this strength and conditioning stuff he was into, these bionic resisting bands. That was all his thing there. He took up dancing. You know, he was the ultimate gym fitness guy, but too small to be a heavyweight, everyone thought. And with Holyfield being the big fight out there, Duvas and Shelly Finkel has done their job. They created this big marketing dollar machine, so where Don has to make the fight with them, and Don is like, look, you need Tyson. Well, all of this is for nothing. And HBO they're so sick of Don King because they feel Don is extorting them for money and everything else and privileges, but he owns the champions. He owns the draw. He has Mike Tyson. So the deal is struck. There's a multi-million-dollar fight in Japan for Mike Tyson. We all know this story, but a deal has been struck between the Duvas, Don King, and Shelly Finkel. They all come to an agreement, and the fight is agreed upon, and once Tyson beat Buster Douglas, he can go ahead and fight Evander Holyfield next. So it is an undefeated fighter versus undefeated fighter, and which one will be the heavyweight champion of the world. And the fight that made people want to take this was the fight before this with the Frank Bruno fight. They felt Tyson looked lethargic in that fight, and Holyfield would fare pretty well against him. They say, well, if he does get stopped, we know Evander at least put up a good fight. We can get a rematch. The Douglas was very keen on just making good money out of it. If Holyfield didn't win, he could go back down to cruising. But they were confident that Holyfield would put up a good enough fight against Mike Tyson. So, especially after watching that fight. So they were eager to go ahead and get the fight done. Now, Evander Holyfield's in Japan. Mike Tyson loses to Buster Douglas. The whole spectrum changes. Because Buster Douglas is under contract with Don King. So Don King has the rights to Buster Douglas's next fight. And if it isn't against Mike Tyson, then Don have to be paid to step aside, and someone else wants to come in and promote the fight, which would have been the Duvas. But the Duvas didn't have enough money to put up to buy Don King out of his position for pay-per-view. The Duvas weren't going to put on a pay-per-view by themselves, so they had to get the one guy who wants to be a boxing promoter part-time, jump in and out, Steve Wynn. He wanted to put together Holyfield versus Buster Douglas for the title. And then the winner is going to be fighting Mike Tyson. But he put all his eggs in the basket when he promoted that fight in the Buster Douglas. So if Buster Douglas won, then he could get Tyson Douglas and be the promoter and co-promoter of it, because he's going to have Buster Douglas. They had to spend 3 weeks in court fighting with Don King for all these rights, and so they had to settle, pay Don millions of dollars to step aside and forfeit his rights to promote the event. So Steve Wayne got the event. Now he had to put in a motion to push the fight back from September to October, because they wasted so much time negotiating in court. They're like, Buster Douglas ain't ready. He's been in court all this time for 3 weeks. Even though Holyfield's in shape, my guy needs about a couple more weeks, because he's been in court all this time. So the fight was pushed back. They agreed about 3-4 weeks, and it's like, okay, the fight still is taking place. And it was going to be the same result anyway. Buster Douglas still came in at 240 something. The extra layoff didn't help at all. It wasn't more time for him to get in shape. He never was planning to get in shape. He didn't care. He was making $25 million for the fight, the biggest purse at that time from any champion in any weight class ever. Biggest guarantee in boxing history at the time. $25 million. And Holyfield smokes him in 3 rounds actually, and he just laid down and quit. Now that fight at the end ended up doing about $1 million pay-per-view buys at like $30-something for the pay-per-view. But more than that, it changed the spectrum of boxing. It was, now we have a heavyweight champion that we like, we want, we can market. He's not crazy, he's not wild, he doesn't have Don King. We got Shelly Finkel, who we like, and we have the Duvas, who we like. Let's focus on this, and we're going to try to make Evander Holyfield a star. And Mike Tyson's contract is getting ready to be up for renewal. So HBO has 2 of the biggest stars in the world, Evander Holyfield and Mike Tyson. Now, all of a sudden, Don King can't get certain things done for Mike Tyson because they're catering more to Evander Holyfield, filming this commercial for Evander Holyfield and all this stuff, and Mike Tyson is the biggest draw of the sport. And that's why Don King says, well, it's all because he got the white man behind him instead of the black man.
See, because the prognosticators, with the one that always called me the perpetrator, they as long as they have a white guy behind him.
Oh man, so
it's okay to let the Jew get all the money, but if a black man support another black man, it's a crime. Only in America.
So Don King goes on the rants, like this, talking about what's going on for Evander Holyfield. Then all of a sudden, the spectrum changes when you have Larry Merchant make some comments about Mike Tyson, criticizing him. Him and Sugar Ray Leonard, both of those guys are criticizing Mike Tyson after all his fights. And then you have Larry Merchant making that joke about wham bam thank you sir, talking about Mike Tyson. But Tyson took it the wrong way. He didn't mean Tyson was homosexual. He meant wham bam thank you sir because there's a man in the ring that Tyson finna knock out. Not like Tyson is gay and he's going in there to sleep with him. And it was something, the joke went left. It was lost and mixed up in translation. And because of that, Tyson was mad. And Tyson wanted to punch him in the face. And he was looking for him and wanted to have a talk with him. So HBO officials was like, look, we cannot have a fighter ready to beat up our analysts. And because it was Larry Merchant, they were like, we're getting rid of Mike Tyson. We don't want Mike Tyson on HBO no more. And they was happy with Holyfield. So Don said, okay, That's the way you want to play it? Fine. He went and negotiated a deal with Showtime with Mike Tyson. And at that time, Showtime wasn't really into the like boxing on that type of level. Tyson changed the entire spectrum of Showtime boxing. When Mike Tyson came there, all the sponsors came to Showtime that they'd never even imagined. They were beating HBO in the boxing ratings for the first time in like forever. It changed the whole spectrum because Mike Tyson was looked at as the biggest villain in the entire sport at that time. And Don King, they were playing keep away with the heavyweight titles and wouldn't give Mike Tyson a rematch or a title shot. He had the longest stint of any former champion before a rematch of his title because the Duvas did not want Mike Tyson to get the belt back. So finally, after working out a deal when they can co-promote between HBO and Showtime, they struck a deal to make Tyson Holyfield 1. And when that deal was made, you know, people were like, yes, finally, we finna find out who's the best fighter at heavyweight. And Tyson got injured in camp training for the fight. He had just fought Buster Razor Ruddock twice. The first time it went like 6 rounds, Tyson won. And the second fight, you know, Tyson knocked him down twice in the fight, but the fight went to distance and went all 12 rounds. And you know, Ruddock had some success earlier, you know, in one of the rounds, but Tyson was still Tyson at that time, and he was in his peak performance. So he wanted Holyfield next, and then they got him. So when they made the deal and did the co-promotion with HBO, because HBO was losing so much money, they needed something huge to come along that was going to make sense for everybody. And this was it. Completely it. The biggest fight of its era. It was the Jack Dempsey throwback fight from the 20s. That's why you saw the people out there with the old politician hats and everything else. And what they did was misestimate what was going on in Indiana. That case, that trial, was not a slam dunk. And one of the most ridiculous criminal investigations of all time. They made up their mind Mike Tyson was guilty the moment they had brought him into the station. They didn't care. They saw another Negro who was accused of rape. They could put in the system, oh, it's Mike Tyson, so he's still going to go. Now, Don King, who thinking this trial is going to be over in a matter of minutes. They're going to release him, he's going to be out. This is nothing. Couple weeks, Tyson's back. And once he couldn't pay a fine or pay anybody to do anything, by that time it was too late. Indiana had already went to military mode and made Mike Tyson the symbol of everybody they wanted to lock up. And that was exactly what they did. They weren't going to let Mike Tyson get any privilege at all and try to take everything away from him. They were upset when he got these celebrity visitors come in because they got to lock everything down. You know, this is Mike Tyson. This is not like some regular guy in jail. This is Mike Tyson behind bars. So he had certain privileges that other inmates didn't have. This comes with the territory. Now, going through this era where Holyfield is the champion, HBO is growing tired of putting on Holyfield fights because they're not grossing anything. The Foreman fight was a failure on pay-per-view. Didn't do what they thought it was going to do. And it was just time. And when it's time, it's time. So, after they saw HBO's failure with the Foreman fight, then the Burt Cooper and Larry Holmes, it was, HBO was looking for any outlet they could to try to make a huge fight or a huge opponent for Evander Holyfield. Enter Riddick Bowe, an ESPN fighter, undefeated, known by Big Daddy, charismatic, but they marketed the fight that he was from the same neighborhood as Mike Tyson. That's how they promote the fight. Riddick Big Daddy Bowe. And Evander Holyfield was going to vanquish a guy who was from the same neighborhood as Mike Tyson. And everybody's like, who is this guy? He's undefeated. Nobody's ever heard of him really, unless you stood up late. But he loved his mama. And he's a big kid, big charismatic kid, and you couldn't help but love Riddick Bowe. Bowe gets out there and put a whooping on Evander Holyfield. Holyfield was too small. That small frame, it kept giving him a boost in the fight to keep fighting. But he just didn't have any power to deal with Riddick Bowe. He could hit Bowe, but he couldn't have an effect on him. So, after the loss, Holyfield wanted to come right back. Evander Holyfield came back against Alex Stewart, a fighter he already beat prior. So it was like, good, I'm continuing right back off with Alex Stewart. So he went right back into the Alex Stewart frame, but this time he went to decision with Alex Stewart. He didn't get a knockdown on him. And he kind of didn't look the same. He looked a little sluggish a little bit, dying out. Then the rematch with Bowe. And around this time was the rumblings of Mike Tyson is getting out of jail. It was like, oh, Tyson should be coming home soon. Tyson should be getting out. That's it. Tyson's coming home. So, with all this is going on, the heavyweight division is a mess because Riddick Bowe comes in big. You had Fan Man come flying in the ring. But something was abnormally different from this fight that happened in November of 93 compared to November of 92. A year, almost a year later since they first fight. Evander Holyfield had gained so much muscle mass. He was completely bald at this point, no hair. But the size of Evander Holyfield was a noticeable thing. He was punching with a lot more power. And his punches seemed to you know, make a difference in the fight, in the exchanges. Where did all this power come from? We'll get back to that. Now, years later, things started to come out because he was the heavyweight champion again. In his very next fight, which was in April of '94, his body wouldn't respond, and he lost to Michael Moore. His very next fight after winning the title, a fight he was winning easily, and then lost it. As the fight progressed, he was having complications. And what he was having was an arrhythmia, which he said came from a morphine shot. No one believed that at all. And when he was sitting over there shaking, they did a test and said that there was no way Holyfield could fight because his heart was suffering from what they called something that they normally see, like when you're having an enlarged heart, sometimes the beat patterns are way off. But he claimed it was from a morphine shot that he had gotten. And when they did the test, this was something they normally seen when somebody had an abuse of steroids in their system. So the chairman of the board, the medical board, the Nevada State Athletic Committee, they believe this condition to be, right on the path of HGH use. Like when you're using too much of it, this is what happens. So when he was in Philadelphia, after announcing his retirement, he met with Benny Hinn, and Benny Hinn, they promised him like it was a rocket. I get you any fight, anywhere, guaranteed. Put it there. And Benny Hinn is one of these spiritual advisors. The guy that put your hand on the glass and I will heal you. One of them guys. And Holyfield had cut him a check for $265,000. And once he did that, he started taking Evander Holyfield on the road with him and started touching him, and Holyfield fall out on the floor. Oh, I'm healed. Oh. This was part of the act. And he had his doctors look at him, and they gave him a clean bill of health. And what they did was, what it said is that they were able to make it where he would pass the test. There was some medication he would take that would keep his heartbeat looking normal, but it was such a health risk to have Evander Holyfield back in the ring. But people want money. So when Holyfield was able to go back in the ring, it wasn't like he looked fantastic. He looked terrible because he was off steroids. He was off the HGH. He was off the performance-enhancing materials. He was sluggish, couldn't move. This is a matter of life and death. Like George Foreman was losing his mind. This ain't about a fight. This is about a man's health. Ooh, look at that shot. So Big George was over there losing his mind watching this fight take place because he's worried about the health of Evander Holyfield. So the fight with Ray Mercer that went all the way to a unanimous decision for Holyfield, and then he comes back and fights Riddick Bowe. When he dropped Bowe for the first time in Bowe's career, and they had that third fight in Vegas. Well, no one gave Holyfield a chance because they were like, well, Holyfield's washed up. He's done. again, Holyfield had flashes of himself, but he wasn't the same. And when he got hit with a big shot, you know, he went down. And he blamed this first knockout TKO loss on the fact that he suffered from hepatitis, that he developed hepatitis right before the fight. And that was the part that messed him up for the entire rest of the night. So now Mike Tyson is coming up. Well, Mike Tyson is out. But before that, Tyson's behind bars, wouldn't take any deal that the state tried to give him. Mike Tyson could have got out years earlier. All he had to do was admit guilt in the Indianapolis rape case. He would have saved about 2 years on his sentence, because Indianapolis was taking so much heat over the trial, over what had happened. But Mike Tyson wanted to clear his name. He wanted Indianapolis to say they were wrong, she was lying, they mishandled the case, everything. So Mike Tyson is like, no, I'm innocent, and that girl is lying, and you guys didn't even investigate it right. Then he's upset with Don King because Don King got him lawyers who were tax lawyers. They weren't criminal lawyers. And Don didn't think, hey, why should I spend money for all these out of state lawyers and all this stuff when he thinking this trial's gonna be swish swish, that this is a dog and pony show. When Mike Tyson got locked up, Don King was losing his mind, because he couldn't believe that they would lock up the biggest money fight in their whole career. Indianapolis lost so much by putting Mike Tyson in jail. They were being punished by every angle you could think of. Events that would normally come there, people were pulling out. People were staying out of there, but they wanted to show people, like, look, we don't care who you are. We're going to treat you just like the criminal we think you are. So people were more reluctant to have certain events, like the Black Expo. I don't think they kept it in Indianapolis. It was moved. And while Tyson's getting out, there's a Mike Tyson party that's going on. When Tyson gets out and he's doing record-breaking numbers, he signed a $300 million deal with Showtime, which was initially they wanted to offer him $150 million, and they were like, let's just do like 3 fights, $150 million. Mike Tyson was like, right now, right now I'm okay with God. I'm trying to get myself right mentally. I'm not really thinking about fighting. I just want to get myself right with Allah. So when he was doing that, he wasn't even looking at the money or anything else. He wasn't thinking about coming back to boxing. So Don King said, look, I know Mike Tyson. I know he's going through a transition with Allah. And everybody was trying to run interference in between Don King and Mike Tyson, saying, look, man, the brother's going to Allah. And Don was like, look, I went through this with Muhammad Ali. Believe me, I know Mike Tyson. I know what he gonna want. So as soon as he go over there and see Mike, he said, Mike, look, you finna get $300 million right now. Before you even release, you got $300 million. Now, No fighter in the history of mankind has made this kind of money. What you gonna do when you get out of here? Mike Tyson saw that he's like, you can take care of your family's family, your grandkids' family, $300 million. And this is just the beginning. You're gonna be $1 billion man, Mike. Now we can start changing the world. Once Don started laying that on him, man, it was like, yeah. So Mike's like, yeah, okay. He signed the deal. Mike is coming back. So then that's when you saw him make the announcement. And he was in a different space. He was clean. He was healthy. And he was mentally sharp. But his boxing skills had suffered. His fight with Peter McNeely was the biggest fight, probably next to Holmes and Cooney. It was just promoted as the comeback of Mike Tyson. Peter McNeely wasn't in the top anything. People didn't care. It was the first fight of Mike Tyson. It was the first fight in which it was a mega pay-per-view fight in which the star fighter, you didn't care. This is a fight that would be on ESPN any day of the week. But because it was the return of Mike Tyson, that's what it was billed as. They were able to sell a record pay-per-view. Pay-per-view was like almost $50 for the whole show. So when that happened, people were like, whoa, look at that. Mike Tyson pay-per-view cost this much money. People spent it. They didn't care. It was the return of Mike Tyson. And then they were like, well, we don't know about this hurricane, Peter McNeely. He throws a bunch of punches. He's going to smother Tyson. And what would Tyson look like? And he didn't look good at all. He was switching from southpaw to conventional. His footwork was terrible. He couldn't even throw his punches right. I was like, oh my goodness, Mike Tyson needs a lot of work. He is nowhere near where he needs to be. He looked really bad in that first fight. Even though one shot from Tyson could end the night, which it did against Peter McNeely, but he needed a Peter McNeely fight. But when they saw how much money that Tyson grossed, HBO is like, my goodness, we're spiraling out of control here. Our heavyweight champion is in dismay. We got all these champions like Joe Hip and Don King is getting all the titles back. With Bowe losing, and all these other fighters are in disarray. They were able to put the Busted Mattis fight against Mike Tyson on television and not pay-per-view on like Fox or something. So you got to watch Tyson for free. So when they worked that deal out, Tyson beat Busted Mattis in his second fight, knocked him out. People weren't even thinking about Evander Holyfield. HBO had moved to their new project, which was Lennox Lewis. He was going to be the guy. Evander Holyfield was completely washed out of people's minds. HBO didn't really care what happened to him. He was a memory. He was a footnote in the history of boxing, and saying that Holyfield was a good champion, but he was a better cruiserweight. Anyway, Tyson storms out and destroys Frank Bruno, who had become the heavyweight champion after beating Oliver McCall. And Oliver McCall was going to fight Mike Tyson, but this worked out to better because Bruno became like the first real British heavyweight champion because Lennox Lewis really wasn't there, while Frank Bruno really was from England. So now it's like, yeah, we got one of our own. Frank got the belt. So the UK was happy. They had their first champion, and he was really making his first defense against Mike Tyson, the guy he lost to previously. And it was the best Mike Tyson had looked. Mike was moving his head. Mike was getting under shots. He was sharp for that fight. Really sharp. And he was in peak condition. Focus was straight. Nothing was going to stop him from winning the title. And this was a march that Don King had. He wanted Tyson to regain all the world titles again. Getting back everything he lost and bringing the heavyweight division back into order. But he's making a ton of money. Tons of money. They made so much money just off the first fight with Mike Tyson. Now here's the Frank Bruno pay-per-view. They made tons of money off this. Then the next fight was the Bruce Seldon fight. Now, after beating Frank Bruno, Lennox Lewis was scheduled by the WBC to be the next champion that Mike Tyson is supposed to face. That they're like, the WBC's like, yeah, we're going to order Mike Tyson to do this. And Mike Tyson, now that he's won the title, he's got to fight Lennox Lewis. So WBC is making this a mandatory thing right after Mike Tyson just won the belt. And they're trying to force Mike Tyson to do what they want to do. And he's like, and Don King's like, no, Mike Tyson makes the rules now. The boxing commissions don't. The fighter's going to make the rules. He's going to fight who he wants to fight. And if you want to get your commission off the fight, you get on the board. If not, then take your belt. So the WBC was like, forget it, we'll go along with this plan of Don's because Bruce Seldon, who had beat Joe Hill, the guy for the vacant title, and the fast jab, Bruce Seldon, and every time Don has an idea, people are not really with it. And after watching the Bobby Chess fight with Evander Holyfield, where it was over in like 5 rounds, Evander Holyfield looked slow, looked methodical, didn't look good at all, like his reflexes were terrible. It would be a mercy killing to put Mike Tyson in with Evander Holyfield at this point. A mercy killing. This is a fighter who wasn't sharp anymore. And there's no way he could win. Don King was on the phone immediately trying to get this fight done. After watching the Seldon fight. I mean, immediately after it was over. The fight was like the first week of May or something. By the 3rd week of May, they had a deal. There was a deal in place to make that fight happen. People didn't even know that. It was already being negotiated and to happen back as early as May. It's about the 3rd week they were like, this is the best time to get Evander Holyfield. We get them for cheap. Nobody wants them. And HBO don't want no part of it. We can get the Holyfield fight. People will pay to see Mike Tyson fight Evander Holyfield. Now, every time they tried to make this fight happen, every single time they tried to put this bout on, things have happened. Mike Tyson lost to Buster Douglas the first time. The second time they had the fight made, Tyson gets injured. It got postponed. Then the trial date happened. And once the trial happened, before the fight, it didn't happen. Tyson went to jail. This is the third time. They weren't going to let it go. Tyson was fighting for the WBA title against Bruce Seldon. The WBC get on board. The fight takes place. And something's wrong. Bruce Seldon didn't look like Bruce Seldon. He looked like a man who was trying to make it look like he knew, like he really was trying to win the fight, but really wasn't there to win the fight. This is you gonna fight when I tell you, where I tell you, how I tell you. The fight was a fix. He was supposed to go down in the first round. And it was like, if Tyson hits you with a good shot, just go down, get up, try to fight back some more. But that's it. You go down. So Tyson didn't even Seldon didn't even know how to throw the fight. Didn't know how. He had never thrown a fight before in his career. So the fans weren't fooled. It was so terrible. If you go back and watch the fight, the referee, Richard Steele, who's in on this fix, knows that this fight should be over in the first round. But once he sees Bruce Seldon is screwing up, Tyson didn't even land a punch, and they're trying to say, oh, the elbow of Mike Tyson hit him on the top of the head, and that made him dizzy. So when he went down, that's what caused the blow. Really, because the punch missed, he goes down and he holds the back of his head. Then he does this little fake thing with the eyes, and then he falls back in the corner. When he take a little half hook, it was a little baby hook from Tyson, and his reaction to it was so phony. It was like, this is the worst thrown fight anybody has seen. It was terrible. People in the audience was tearing up tickets, screaming, fix, 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 fix. The whole arena. Wow, this is the night Tupac got shot. September. Evander Holyfield had already agreed to fight Mike Tyson next. They had Evander Holyfield in the ring. They interviewing him. You know, and he's like, look, I don't know what this other guy came to do. I know Mike came to fight. I'm not sure about what the other guy came to do. You know, and the guy who's in it, what's his name? The announcer, Freddie Pacheco, he's aware of what's going on. He's part matchmaker, part announcer, and they're letting him go in there and go through this whole spiel of people are screaming fixed fight. What ridiculous. You know, he's trying to clean up everything that's in the that just transpired in the ring. So once this was over, Evander Holyfield's fighting Tyson now. It comes to the first fight. The WBC is threatening Mike Tyson that if you don't fight Evander Holyfield, Lennox Lewis, the belt will be stripped. So Mike Tyson said, you know what? Had a press conference, watched him drop the WBC belt in the garbage. Saying, look, here you go. There you go. You wanna crown Lennox Lewis, you're a WBC champion. Go ahead. You don't do it without me. And just drop the belt in the garbage. Now, with that being said, Holyfield and Tyson fight was made. And what HBO, the shock of them and everybody else, was the fact that people were buying this fight. They had totally forgotten Holyfield was knocked out twice. They were totally forgotten his heart, totally forgotten that everything. They saw Tyson versus Holyfield. We're finally going to get it. People was like, Tyson's going to kill him, but I got to see it. And to everybody's shock and awe, the fight was a pay-per-view success. It was huge. The turnout was even greater than imagined. But something's different about Evander Holyfield in this fight. He doesn't look lethargic. They was like, well, he was motivated because he was fighting Mike Tyson. True. But his mass, he's strong. Like physically stronger than Mike Tyson. He's shoving Tyson around, and it's a whole different Evander Holyfield. Now, ever since he won the heavyweight title and beat Bruce Seldon and all of these things that happened, and Mike Tyson was not the same. He was spiraling back to the old Mike. He's partying. He's doing drugs. He's sleeping with all these women. He's not doing his prayers he used to do. He's out in Arizona and California now, just doing cocaine and sleeping with all these women. He's high all the time. And this was the week after the Bruce Seldon fight. Tyson had gained 22 pounds in a week. And he's laying with a whole bunch of naked girls. Party, all these different crazy white girls all day. Cocaine is everywhere. He's there with a couple of celebrities. And he comes downstairs and Don King is on the phone. Don said, whatever you do, get yourself back fixed. We finna get Holyfield. We finna get him, Mike. We got him. I'm gonna deliver you Evander Holyfield. So Mike Tyson's excited. Because he was, man, this dude was talking bad about me when I was in jail. You know, he had nothing to say. He was cussing up a storm. And Mike was supposed to get back in Vegas. And they needed him to be in town for all this stuff to go on. Mike mind wasn't right. And hanging out with Lenny Dykstra and De Niro and having these crazy parties at these celebrities' houses and doing all this blow. He's back in New York. You know, it was like a drug party marathon. People were doing crazy stuff back in the 90s. You know, you had people like Terry Hatcher who was there. She was sleeping with these producers and movie producers there, and Mike Tyson wanted to bang her too. So this was before that show they had. But needless to say, it was a lot of cocaine everywhere. And Mike was taking full part of it, cocaine and weed. And this was not the right Mike Tyson we saw in the ring. Tyson went in the ring thinking, I'm gonna knock Holyfield out with the very first punch. He won't last 3-4 rounds with him. And he walked into something he wasn't prepared for. Tyson trained 2.5, maybe 3 weeks for that fight. He wasn't in proper fight shape to fight a long 12-round fight with Evander Holyfield. Plus, he was fighting an Evander Holyfield that many believe was on HGH. Because it wasn't making sense how he was so sharp, reflexes quick, when he was slow as molasses in his last fight. Legs were completely shot. And watching how he was in his previous fights, did he find the fountain of youth? So, after stopping Mike Tyson in like the 11th round, or 10th round, whatever one it was, or he was the beginning of the 11th, Mike Tyson, the people who were rooting for Holyfield, who was the good Christian spirit man, it was the theme story of the infight, the belief, not about the HGH. Tyson's team, like Don King, Don loved the fact that Tyson lost. A lot of people think, oh, Don was upset. This worked out even better. Now he knows the rematch is going to be through the roof. Tyson will kill him in the rematch. And I own both of them. So I'm in the driver's seat. I'm making all the money. Now, this just made it even better. Now we'll have a better and more focused Mike Tyson. You know, Tyson now is going to be back in shape. Tyson's going to be back on point. No more cocaine parties with De Niro. No more coke with Lenny Dykstra. No more coke with a whole bunch of other people. No more coke with all these people. Now he's going to be in the gym. Now he's going to be focused. Now we bringing back Richie Gaetti, who shouldn't have left in the first place. Rest in peace, Richie. Now we getting back to basics. We got to get back to work. So now Tyson's back having a full camp. And the rematch is set. The sound and the fear. The record-breaking pay-per-view in 1997. Every celebrity were paying out the nose to be in that arena to see that fight. Because Holyfield was the guy they liked. Tyson was not the one they wanted to root for. He was to be the villain. Holyfield represented everything good, Christianity, the belief in all this, all these churches, these choirs, all these people are coming to Evander Holyfield's aid, these evangelists. It was one big party. Until the fight took place. Holyfield looks even bigger than he did in the first fight. Mass-wise, he's like, shoulders look like bowling ball. His reflexes are still there. He's throwing hard punches, and it's like, what kind of Holyfield is this? Now, going into this fight, they wanted to do a test to see whether Evander Holyfield, was on steroids. So Holyfield agreed to this test. Well, he didn't want the results to be known till after the fight was over. Because he said he wanted Mike Tyson to psychologically be bothered by it. Because they were like, man, there ain't no steroids, man. This is all God's work. But what happened is the sophistication of the test that they were talking about was all urine based. Nothing with the blood, which would have caught a lot of this activity that was going on here. And the testosterone levels that were presented was not going to come up in that urine test. They were able to get under the radar. But something was off. And Mike Tyson was completely bothered in this rematch because he knew, I can't lose this fight. This is a fight I gotta win. And Tyson was getting headbutted. He felt the fight going right back to the same direction. And the referee felt wasn't in his side. And Holyfield's headbutting the crap out of him. Every time they get close, he's dropping that head down and hitting him right in the forehead. And he cuts Mike Tyson again from the headbutt, and Tyson loses it. After telling the ref over and over he's headbutting, he's butting. And Mills is just, all right, okay, I got it, keep it up. Keep him up. And that was it. Tyson bites off a piece of his ear. And we got to hear about it in every movie, every joke, everything that comes around Mike Tyson's career has resulted to an ear bite in the sport of boxing. Everything he's done. So after the second fight, Holyfield became the man in boxing. He was the one. And it was later found out that HGH use, steroid, and all these things were all these companies in Alabama that applied pharmacy services. And Holyfield was anonymously linked there, even though he keep denying it. All these places were under investigation. Remember the Evan Fields situation. Mike Tyson went under the name Evan Fields, and it caught the investigators' attention. And Holyfield tried to say, oh, it was my dad getting medication at my house. And not me. And then he, 3 months later, saying he's going to launch his own investigation into this steroid claims in order to clear his name. Then, in September, Signature Pharmacy and HGH and steroids with pro athletes in Orlando, Florida. They did a raid on there, and Holyfield name was again linked to some HGH that was there. Holyfield career had taken a dive. He had lost all his money, though he had grossed everything in the ring. Over $350 million he had grossed. He was completely broke. All his Christians left him once they found out he had all of these kids out of wedlock. He had like 5 extra kids. He had 11 kids everywhere. He wasn't the darling Evander Holyfield anymore. But he still tried to keep a good face, you know, and Evander's a good person. It's just that, you know, it was too much going on. For Evander Holyfield, you know, so Evander Holyfield career will always be in question because of HGH allegations. Did he have a heart of a champion? Absolutely, but when you've cheated the sport and people know it, we can't let him get away with it. We can't let all of this go under the radar. Too many questions was brought up. A lot of things just didn't make sense. And to just say, oh, God did this, God did that. They try to justify you cheating the sport of boxing when all this evidence keeps coming up where everything is pointing back in your direction. And people like Don King had to keep all this stuff under wraps because he needs you out there fighting. And all these stories started to pop up later in the career when you could no longer keep all this stuff quiet. I'm out.